Hello, this is Mark Sabatella from Outside Shore Music, home of mastering MuseScore. In this week's tip, I'm going to show you how to coax a little bit of jazz style out of the chord symbol playback in MuseScore. Now, the algorithm is very simplistic, and by default, it's very literal. If I have a major seventh chord, it's literally just going to play those four notes plus a bass note. And same with the F7 chord, literally just an F7 chord. So it's not sounding very jazzy by default. But if you want it to, we have these settings over here in the Properties panel. And if I click the Jazz setting here, what it's actually going to do is going to add a ninth. It will, depending on the chord, it's got a little smart to it. Sometimes it knows when it can add 13ths and things, or flat nines and whatnot. But basically, it will add a ninth or some form of color tone to your chord. Now, the only problem with doing that, I can actually select like all the chords. I can click here, shift click here, and set them all to jazz style. And now when I click on them, you'll hear, that's the A7 chord, and it's trying to play kind of an A7 with a flat 9, and it's raising the fifth and making it this sound here. Well, this is a little too cluttered sounding, perhaps. So that's what happens when you set the jazz style. So I want to show you the other setting you're going to want. Over here under voicing, we're also going to go back and select all these chords here. And I'm going to set the voicing, instead of auto, to drop 2. That causes it to do a couple of things. One is it's going to leave the root out of the top on the assumption that it's going to be played down there in the bass. And it's going to leave that root out. And it's going to take the second to top note and drop it down an octave. This is a very common voicing style for jazz musicians. So when I play this now, that's what you get. It's actually a really nice jazzy sound. So if I play this chord progression now, it's going to sound a little bit more like jazz. And if you were paying attention, you probably heard the flat 9 also on the G7. It knows when to flat its ninths and when not to, according to a fairly simple but effective algorithm. So anyhow, that's how you can get a little bit of jazz playback out of your chord symbols. You're going to set them to the jazz interpretation and the drop 2 voicing. And then you can also use the ... menu here to say set as default style for the score, so that all of the subsequent chords you enter will also use those settings.